All right, guys. Well, I want to help solve one of the most common problems that we see within the running community, especially those of you who are working towards a long distance event, a multi-day event, an ultra event, a marathon, even a half marathon. This could be considered where we are seeing a significant drop off with adherence to strength training whilst on a running program. And what we're going to talk about today is like this ideal ratio and the program design that is going to allow you to maintain your levels of strength and conditioning whilst training for these types of distances. First and foremost, we are all kind of in the similar boat in terms of like a lot of us struggle with, having enough time, enough energy, enough mental bandwidth. When we're kind of following a program that's asking us to do 4, 5, 6 days a week of training on top of working in a busy work life, family life, etc. Like these are, time is our most precious commodity. Right alongside that is energy and like obviously our mental bandwidth, the amount of stress that we can tolerate. And it always ebbs and flows. It's always going to be the case. And this is again why we want to have this kind of week to week kind of approach to our training. But what's the most obvious thing that's going to stop you in your tracks? It's going to be an injury. And the running community is rife with it. You ask most people, have experienced 1, 2, 3 injuries across their kind of an annual calendar year. A lot of people have a very torrid time with kind of reoccurring injuries that kind of dotted all over their body and that kind of crop up every now and again. And it's because, guys, the elephant in the room is that people really struggle to maintain their levels of strength and conditioning all year round. Now we are now currently living in a world where the hybrid athlete is a real thing. Like people are trying to be the best of both worlds. And we're seeing that this other version of this kind of conversation where you're seeing people trying to maintain high levels of strength or high intensity kind of fitness alongside being able to run high volumes, high speeds. And again, it's a lot of this is very hard to kind of fit into your lifestyle. A lot of the kind of the programming that's being kind of based around is based around people that have got a lot of time to spare. They're probably working professionals. They're single. They don't have children. They're not trying to run a business on top of this. They just have a greater bandwidth, or they're just living off their youth and they're headed for burnout. And I think this is what I really want to talk about, guys. Is what we are proud to do at Strength for Endurance, it's on the door, it's in the brand, is that we are looking for relentless strength for endurance all year round. And there's always been this kind of negative kind of perception where that you're just going to lose strength throughout the year, and you're just going to need to kind of, as the season progresses, you're going to erode away at that strength and you're going to hang on to the end of the season, which is where a lot of you are hoping to kind of be at your best. You've got to compete. And this is where you see a big drop off. You see a lot of people not making the start line. You see a lot of people struggling to see the results from all the hard training. And guys, the elephant in the room is that you have eroded away at your levels of strength and conditioning throughout that year. The minor events that you're using to build up, the volumes that you're putting through your body, the 16, 20, 24 week plus of consistent training that hopefully you've managed, you're not as strong as you were at the beginning. And that is a problem. And that is something I really want to help you with, because the people that we're working with, guys, are thriving because they are maintaining their levels of strength. They're getting older. We're dealing with people who are pushing into their 50s and their 60s, or, they're no longer there in their 20s. They're not living off that youth. They've got a lot going on, but there's a non-negotiable kind of relationship of strength alongside their endurance training. And I don't want to make this easy. I want this to be the fact that we're talking about people who are training towards these kind of ultra distances. They're working towards a 50, 100K, 100 mile at a multi-day event, and they're also working professionally. Some have families, some don't. Others are commuting, traveling abroad. All of the above. But there's a non-negotiable strength and conditioning alongside their run performance, and this is the secret, guys. Look at any other sport, there is a non-negotiable buy-in to the strength and conditioning work that they have to be doing to maintain their athletic performance. Running community, the multi-sport community, the ultra community, they still have this kind of weird kind of relationship where they don't completely buy into it. They are happy to, it's one of the first things that gets dropped, and it will come back to bite them. It always does. It's just the way it is. Like these random little injuries, these tendon issues, these niggles, it's because there's a lack of buy-in to the S&C. And the way we work, guys, is that, and I feel like it's very unique a lot of the time, is that it's all year round. But it's how we ebb and flow with it, how we manage it, how we bring in the complexity, reduce the complexity, managing overall training load. And this is the art of it, And I guess, it comes from a sports science background. 20 years ago, I studied sports science. In the years before that, I was competing at an international level. Like I broke myself a number of times. I had to go through a lot of physio, a lot of rehab in the lead up to those and post up of those injuries. But then also wanting to be a better runner. 20 years ago, helping Polly as a professional triathlete, building to those higher volumes of training as a young woman, managing so many different types of injury over the years. It's a remarkable thing, guys, going into a sport which demands so much of us, to not see people who have this thoughtless approach to their S&C. And it has to be every single week, guys. And this is the main point of today's topic is every single week, you're doing some form of strength and conditioning work to complement your endurance training. You love to run, you love to ride, you love to swim, you want to climb mountains, you want to just get out and hike for days on end. As we get older, as we look to push the boundaries, push our thresholds, push our capacity, what are you asking? You're asking more of your body on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. You expect your body to be able to jump out of bed-ish and be able to perform. How are you going to make sure that you're giving your body the appropriate maintenance required? Hopefully, there's this relentless relationship with good preparation, good warm-ups, and good recovery pre and post. But that's not going to be enough. Those little 5 minutes of drills and habits that hopefully you've learned up at the track or you're learning from your running coaches, etc. That's not going to be enough. Like you have picked up injuries in the past. You have played other sports. You have physical dominances that are going to leave you with weaknesses in other areas that you have to be working on. So, guys, when we talk about this, like the underlying tone is that S&C should be absolutely integrated into your run programming all year round. If you don't have that, there is a lack of understanding and education coming from that program that you're working with. I don't want to point fingers, but there is just a massive gap in that education there. If you are working for a program that is looking to train your body, looking to build you up build you to a place where you've potentially never performed at, or you're looking to push into to do similar distances again, but you're older now, you've picked up your post-injury, you have your training program has to have strength conditioning integrated into it. If it doesn't, you're hoping your body is going to be able to tolerate the upcoming volumes. So, guys, what I'm saying is S&C wants to be your strength and conditioning, your strength training wants to be integrated throughout your programming all year round. There is no longer this kind of ebb and flow with it. It just wants to be there all year round. Sorry, when I say ebb and flow, it's not like we do like a block of it and then we just don't do anything for the rest, for a big chunk of time. You want it to be there integrated. How we go about doing that? It's based on timelines. It's based on priorities. If you're coming back from an injury, there's going to be weaknesses. There's going to be atrophy in certain key muscle groups. You're going to have lack of mobility, joint stability in certain areas. Right at the beginning of a training program, there's a big emphasis on building back those foundational levels of strength, stability. We want to make sure that you can produce power confidently both sides of your body. You can absorb force through your knees, your ankles, your hips, your lower back, You've got good postures and positions that you can hold in your shoulders, etc. This is like base level stuff that you want to be making sure that's in your program. This is the week 1 to 4 of a program. When you look at if you're looking down the barrel of a 16-week, 20-week build now with a run program, your first 4 to 8 weeks is going to be general physical preparation. As you start to build up that volume, that base training, your strength and conditioning wants to be in there 2 to 3 times a week. 2 full body sessions, 1 kind of weakness, kind of specific session. Potentially shorter in the middle of the week, where it's going to be bullying that single leg aspect, working on your plyometric ability, working on some of those previous injured sites. So like, calves, hamstrings, kind of patella kind of tendon area. We want to be working on those because in the first few weeks, you want to be addressing uncertainty, I think is what I want to be able to kind of share with you. Addressing uncertainty, we all have it, okay? We've all had injuries in the past. We've all got areas of our body that as we add more load to it, and more training volume, more run volume, those are the areas that you potentially are going to break down on you. This is where your S&C wants to come to the forefront and give you that confidence. It wants to showcase that I'm feeling better, feeling confident, I can produce more work than I ever have done in these areas over the last couple of weeks. That's going to carry you into this next phase, which is going to be obviously increasing volume, increasing the complexity of the terrain that you're running on, etc. Your S&C wants to be 2 to 3 times a week. It also you want to see it within your running warm-ups, your run cool-downs. Like you want to see it in your recovery behaviors, in your warm-up behaviors. You want to be integrating it throughout. Now, as volume increases, and it should do, right? You potentially you're moving from 3 to 4 run sessions a week to then building to 5 to 6 potentially on the volume, and depending on the volumes that you've kind of you know that you need to be working to. These volumes are going to be based on you and what you can tolerate. I cannot stress that enough. A lot of you will be working to like these perceived numbers that you think that you need to be working and trying to fit that into your lifestyle. You want to establish what a good working volume is going to be for you. Some people can tolerate up to 50, 60 kind of kilometers a week. Some people can top out 100 plus kilometers a week. It depends on your lifestyle. But as you start to build volume into your week, you start to put in 5 runs a week, 6 runs a week, because as you're trying to accumulate more volume, you're trying to accumulate more work into your body. That S&C, we're going to drop the intensity and the complexity of some of those sessions. We're going to potentially drop you down to 2 S&C sessions a week, where you're getting what we need to be ticking off: the single leg work, the plyometric work, the loading your body with those maximal loads. We want to be hitting those major muscle groups, especially the ones that have been are somewhat neglected or could be stronger, moving into the mountains, or to help you with those descending and ascending. These are the areas that you want to be continuously working on. It's just how you manage the load. There is an obvious increase in overall training load. Your volumes are increasing. The type of train that you're running on is going to put a hell of a lot more work through your body. As a result, we want to be being conscious about how much intensity we're putting into your body elsewhere. This is where a good conversation with your coach has got to come into play. This is where we want to be going, look, the S&C we're doing right now, it's been working up until a point. Now we need to address and maybe regress some of these exercises. You're going from a back squat to a goblet squat to a split squat. We're working with dumbbells or machines instead of barbells, etc. We're deloading you in one area to then upgrade and create overload in other areas. But it's still relentless. You're still working on those areas of weakness, because lo and behold, as you add more volume to your body, you start to put more descending, ascending work, work in the hills. You're probably going to find some other areas of weakness that you don't just want to hope go away by adding more running volume. You want to be going back into your S&C and working on those little skill drills, working on those little areas that kind of put more kind of load into those key areas, working on those eccentric loading of your step ups or your kind of your Patrick step downs. These types of exercises that are just putting more load into your patellar tendon, making sure that you are just moving really well. But guys, as we progress and we're getting you up to 100K a week, you're hitting 2 sessions, at least 2 quality S&C sessions a week, from home, at the gym, depending on what your lifestyle allow for. But across that week, you potentially have got 3 to 4 other micro sessions, 10, 15 minutes pre and post training sessions, where you're hitting your areas of weakness. What are those going to be specific? Well, hopefully you've gone through some sort of physical screening. We do this periodically with everyone we work with, because we want to make sure that we're keeping on top of your previous injuries, like those things that will potentially crop up again and again when we add more volume. We've got to keep bullying them, and they come in at different times, but it's relentless. We've got people working on their on their feet. We've got people working specifically on their ankle mobility, working on their loading their knees, a patellar tendon. We're working on their hip and lower back and sacroiliac areas. We've got people who are specifically targeting different areas throughout their week. Even more so, guys, their habits increase around their S&C as they increase their volume. Surely that makes sense. I really want that to really hit home as you move into this new kind of next 3 to 6 months of your training, where if you expect your body to tolerate higher volumes of work, you want to be able to work through 16, 20 weeks of training ahead, you've got to be then investing as much time, or a quality amount of time, into your strength and conditioning, because that's what's going to prevent the injury. It's going to keep you consistently turning up. Nutrition, recovery, everything else comes in play. But this S&C element it's still almost 20 years down the line, is still something that I'm trying to preach loud and proud about, because it's the thing that seemingly is still non-existent. And every time I speak to someone who's struggling, it's generally because that's dropped off. As soon as we pick it back up, consistency follows. All right. And this is what I want for you. So as you move into the new year, guys, find that consistency. If you struggle with this, reach out and we can have a conversation. Guys, have a great week. Speak soon.